Hi and welcome to a weekly outlook. This is Kim speaking on Monday the 17th of September. So as we're halfway through September, or just over, let's have a look what we got coming in store. Firstly, actually, let's have a look at the key fundamentals that are due out this week. So we've seen Mondays out. There wasn't very much to shout about there at all. Actually, the CAD might have got a bit of a blip there on that news, but looking through the rest of the week then, so early hours of tomorrow morning, monetary policy minutes, these can always create a bit of volatility, as often as something that's been said but not said in any follow-up meetings. ECB President Draghi speaking there at 8:15, is due to speak to the French Prudential Supervision and Resolution Authority event in Paris. Okay, may get something out of that, but we need to be aware of it more than anything else. But that's pretty it. It's pretty much it. Manufacturing sales and the Canadian dollar there at 130. And maybe a bit of twitchy news around about for the New Zealand dollar, but we've got more important news for the New Zealand dollar later in the week. Moving through then Wednesday, then we've got Reserve Bank of Australia assistant speaking, Governor due to be speaking there, due to deliver a speech, money creation. Now that's quite a subject and a half following our meeting with Saxo last week. Be interesting to see what they've got to say about money creation, and it certainly needs some. So that's at 2:30 then. So it may create a little bit of volatility. I wouldn't expect too much. More importantly though is the Bank of Japan's policy rate, etc. Not expect to see any real changes as such in policy rate, but you never know what will be said in the statements and whether they become a little bit more hawkish, but we'll see. Leading through then on Wednesday, full day, then we've got MPC members speaking, and more importantly at 9:30 the inflation data coming out. So it will be interesting to see if this is actually dropping back slightly. 2.4 is expected from the 2.5 last time. 2.4 would be somewhere in line with wage inflation if it was to come out higher. It's not the greatest news. But we'll see. Reaction to some of these news events for the UK at the moment is somewhat lost within the Brexit chatter. Following on then, as the week goes on here, I say week goes on, day goes on, Draghi speaking again, 2 PM Thursday. Okay, it's due in Berlin, is due to speak at. Maybe get volatility, we'll see. But something to bear in mind then on Wednesday afternoon there. For the GDP, for the New Zealand dollar watchers, the GDP is quite clear coming out. Now I've seen expectation figures around about 0.7. It's coming, they're showing 0.8. Anything less than that could see the New Zealand dollar drop further. As I said, 0.7. If anything comes below that 0.7 figure, I would, as I say, expect a further weakening. Any surprise upside there? Well, we could see more, maybe a bit more of a grounding out there. As I said, with the 0.7, I mean the Kiwi's at the lowest all sort of levels where it's been sitting, or has been sitting around about the lows. It could even pitch low because there could be talk of interest rate cuts there. Okay, retail sales to the UK, another key number coming out there Thursday morning. Maybe stifled, nothing else much there. Well, the German Buber, the president speaking at 4:15, may create a bit of volatility, but we'll be done by then. Then for Friday, well, there's some potential movement will be created by the French and German flash manufacturing data and services PMI. They both tend to create more volatility than the 9 o'clock news that comes out thereafter. Public sector net borrowing. I'm not bothered with that. And well, leading to inflation and core retail sales for 130 for Canadian dollar. And there's other numbers coming out there, so they're the two key ones, and make a bit of volatility around those. Okay, so Euro relatively slow week in terms of news and data until Friday really. So what then? I'm looking at this, actually it's just come back a step into the weeklies. It's been chopping around, pushing around, trying to break through that weekly 21. It's tested it twice. It tested it towards the end of the last week and come off on the Friday. It could be looking to push beyond that now. It's pushed up today. As I said, it didn't really show on this time frame. It's only when I was coming down to the 4 hourlies I was looking. I could see the higher lows, higher highs, and okay, we haven't pitched any higher today than Friday's high, but it's certainly been a half decent morning for the London session for the euro there, and it's may still have further upside coming back to these dailies. The dailies where we've broken and close again above that daily 100, and we could be pushing in towards monthly R1, and well, we'll see. It could push through. I've mentioned this sort of these highs here, this other highs at 1734, and you've got this whole bundle of resistance, previous resistance, maybe with a sort of inverted. It's not necessarily a shoulder on the left hand side. We've certainly got a clearer shoulder on the right, maybe a cup and handle then. Maybe we'll see a push on upwards for the depth of this, which would take us up towards that daily 200 at some point. Okay, sentiment on the euro is quite interesting here. We're seeing the more aggressive hedge funds taking money out of the short positions, nearly 23,000 lots there coming off. Although a net position, certainly more bullish sort of stance on that, slightly less bullish by asset managers. But when you look at the overall positions here, they're still very bullish, and we just, as I say, just seeing an edge of possible some change there with the leveraged money. Okay, let's push on and look at the pound. He says, shifting through quickly. There we go. Start off looking at the weeklies. When it eventually came, now we've just seen a continuation really. Last week it ended up putting in, really looks like a bullish pivot swing there. It's closed up higher than the previous high there, so it's putting a bullish pivot swing. We're running it through. It is making some progress. Well, obviously retail sentiment at this stage will no doubt be dropping off and start getting bearish again soon. But for now, we've seen a decent move up there. Any sort of relatively negative noise has been forgotten. I was just sorry. As I was doing this, I just had to look, and the short side on the pound now has gone up to. The long side was 83% beginning of last week or something like that. It's now down to 38%. Typical as the pound starts getting some weekly momentum there. The traders are trying to sell it already. Now there may be some shocks and horrors, but it looks like there's more sort of talk of deals to be done. Maybe the best news will be to the upside. We'll see. But there could. It remains, and I keep on saying this, it remains an amazingly risky pairing to be traded intraday through the London session, when you can get, I say London session, any session really, when you can suddenly get surges of agreement or not agreement to be mentioned. Now we have got the weekly pivot that's sitting below it at the moment, which hasn't been hit, but overall it just remains in a relatively steady high low high high sort of picture on the 4 hourlies, and certainly you can see that reflected in this daily chart here. Where to? Well, we've got the 100 MA coming up on the dailies there. That might be pitched in the morning, we'll see. That might just slow things down a little bit. It's almost due a little correction maybe, but we'll see. As I say, keeps on making higher highs, or near enough, and higher lows. What after that? Well, it's quite a way up to that 200, but it's possible, certainly possible. But any good news through the rest of this month could see it pushing towards that for sure. Okay. Oh, best have a look at the sentiment on it whilst I'm talking. So sentiment is well, short positions well, still interesting actually. A few more long positions coming in the asset managers, the hedge funds, the pension funds, etc. More slightly well, still 2-to-1 negative basically, just about spot on actually. Leveraged funds here, well, the leveraged funds, they've reduced. Look, they're pulling out some of these short positions, so we're seeing a net change there, not necessarily a big swing, but the leveraged money is starting to head more bullish here, so a slightly more bullish net position on both, so overall. So we'll see how we go with that, but say bullish to be at the moment. Dollar yen, let's have a look at the weekly picture. Dollar yen's been pushing up pretty well, heading towards its weekly 200 maybe, but slight retracement at the moment today, and well, it's got the weekly pivot maybe as a target. It'd be interesting to see whether it breaks that through towards that daily 8 and gets any reaction off of that, but it has been gradually unwinding here. Was obviously news coming through on interest rates may see a bigger correction here one way or the other. Aside of that, looking at it technically, well, it's still continuing in this sort of upward movement. Any reasonable retracements may give buying opportunities for it. Okay, Aussie dollar. I should look at the yen sentiment there actually. So look at the yen sentiment, and short positions down a bit, long positions down a bit more shorts off than longs, still neutralish but edging towards the shorter side still, and certainly the hedge funds are short on it. And you look at the overall negativity for the yen at the moment, it's more the hedge funds are much more negative on it, but and in fact there's a slight more movement. It's sort of tipping the scales a little bit towards the sell side on the bigger money as well there. Right, Aussie dollar weekly view, technical. Okay, inverted hammer maybe last week. It's struggling to hold on to the gains, and it's been making week after week here, lower lows, lower highs. Daily point of view, well, it's sticking around the new weekly pivot. Maybe if it can get some traction here, it could be looking to push through that daily 21. It certainly was a target for it last week, and well, if it can push through that, could be. We've still got an untouched monthly pivot there, so if it starts breaking through that, then that becomes a target for certainly towards 34 and maybe 50. Sentiment on the Aussie. I'm looking at the wrong page here, so take that away and look at the sentiment for the Aussie. Well, more short positions. I mean, it's very short looking, isn't it? Was a bit of a change on the for the hedge funds there. They're just switching their money a little bit here. Still a growth of shorts, but the long side maybe bit of speculation there for the upside on the and maybe expecting a bottom coming in, maybe a short-term bottom. We'll see, but certainly a bit of a change of tune there for the Aussie. Okay, let's move on to the Canadian dollar and look at it from a weekly point of view. So weekly wise, well, it didn't quite put a bearish pivot swing in there, but it wasn't the was quite good movement down in the earlier part of last week there on the Tuesday, Wednesday then, but then Thursday, Friday not really going too far, and in fact it ended up with sort of a bullish pivot swing, which hasn't really triggered today. We've got the weekly pivot above, which may cause a draw. Watching, I mean, I need to just keep an eye on oil. In fact, I will look at oil briefly here at this point. So just seeing what oil's doing. Well, it's consolidating is what it's doing at the moment, and it's range bound. So it's got itself between 67 71, so a $4 range that it's been in there for now 2 weeks, which may be an equilibrium sort of type price for now at least. We'll see how it goes, but yeah, it's certainly not suggesting further strengthening. So Canadian dollars all down to its own technicals here, and technicals and fundamentals throughout for this week. But at the moment, well, as I said, it looks like it could pitch up towards that weekly pivot. It would be interesting to see the reaction to that. I was wondering whether it would eventually pull down towards this daily 200. If we see the dollar strength softening off, the US dollar softening, that would be a reasonable target for it. Okay, that's pretty much it on the currencies. Actually, I'll just have a quick look at the sentiment for the Canadian dollar here. And well, asset managers there, well, it's flat in terms of their thoughts on it almost, and not actually more bearishness coming in for the Canadian dollar. So it's maybe they're expecting a bit more of a bounce here and something to be sorted out. This has certainly changed this picture here, a bit less bearish maybe, sitting there. Okay, so sentiment, technicals all done for the currencies and the majors there. Let's just have a quick look then at the S&Ps. Now we could be seeing potentially a double top that's been put in on Friday. Is this going to be a rollover? I'm not referring to a rollover lottery for you gamblers out there. Is this a start of a rollover? We'll see. It certainly looks like there may have been some divergence kicking in through the highs here. Certainly divergence on the MACD there over that short period. It's a nice clear divergence sitting there. So I've not wanted to be selling it all year, and don't particularly want to sell it now. But it does look weaker, so it's just an opinion here as ever. Maybe it could it hasn't retraced even back to its 50 for a long time, so see how it closes. Maybe if it's selling off a bit again tomorrow, we could start seeing it edge down a little bit further. So certainly looks like a bit of weakness there into that double top from Friday's doji there. Right, that's that, and I will look at gold. It's not fair not to. Weekly picture, still consolidating here, a little bit of an upside this week. Started this week off quite well, but maybe a bit of indecision on the last week's close there, doji. But I'm still, to be fair, erring towards the bearish side. It did actually on Friday end up with a bearish pivot swing there on the dailies. I'm not convinced well, by the momentum of this. It's just been chopping along pretty sideways here. I mean, you can look at what the histogram's showing here in terms of momentum, but you don't really need to. You can just see what the price is showing us at the moment, and it does look like it could roll over at some point. So there we go. That's me done for the week. I've done a separate little video on cryptos. If you're interested in crypto trading cryptocurrencies, I've just done a short video looking at the majors there. Have a great week, and I'll be back well for the morning updates, but aside of that, I'll see you next week. Bye for now.